Imagine drifting in the middle of the ocean. No land in sight, no rescue coming. Your boat motor is dead, your radio is silent, and the nearest coastline is thousands of miles away. Now imagine that lasting not for days, not for weeks, but for 14 months straight. This isn't fiction. In 2012, a fisherman named José Salvador Alvarenga left the coast of Mexico for what should have been a 2-day fishing trip. He wouldn't see land again for 438 days. When he finally washed ashore, he was 6,700 miles from home, barely recognizable and holding a survival record that still stands today. This is the true story of the longest ocean survival ever documented, and how one man's refusal to give up kept him alive when everything else failed.
José Salvador Alvarenga was not an adventurer or an explorer. He was a working fisherman trying to make a living. Born in El Salvador, he had moved to Mexico in his 20s, settling in the small coastal village of Costa Azul in Chiapas state. By 2012, he was 36 years old and had been fishing these waters for years. He knew the ocean. He respected it, but like most fishermen, he also depended on it. José specialized in catching sharks and marlins, heading out into deep water where the bigger fish lived. It was hard work, often dangerous, but it paid better than staying close to shore. He owned a simple 25-foot fiberglass skiff with an outboard motor, nothing fancy, just functional. On the morning of November 17, 2012, he prepared for another routine trip. The forecast looked decent enough. He loaded his boat with ice, bait, and basic supplies. His usual partner wasn't available that day, so José brought along a young man named Ezequiel Córdoba. Ezequiel was only 22 and didn't have much experience on the open ocean, but he needed the work. They planned to stay out for about 2 days, catch what they could, and return to sell their haul. José had done this hundreds of times before. There was no reason to think this trip would be any different. They left the dock around 7 in the morning, heading southwest into the Pacific. The water was calm at first. Everything felt normal. They had been fishing for several hours when the wind picked up. Weather in the Pacific can change fast, and what started as a breeze quickly turned into something more serious. Dark clouds rolled in from the west. The swells grew larger. José decided they should head back, but before they could turn the boat around, the storm hit hard. Rain came down in sheets. Waves crashed over the sides of the small skiff. Then, the worst possible thing happened. The motor died. José tried to restart it again and again, yanking the cord, checking the fuel line, doing everything he knew how to do. Nothing worked. They were now drifting in rough seas with no power. He reached for the radio to call for help. It had gotten soaked. No signal, no response. He tried several times, but the radio was dead too. They had flares, but in the driving rain and low visibility, there was no one close enough to see them. The storm pushed them farther and farther from the coast. Within hours, they couldn't see land anymore, just water in every direction. The current was pulling them west, out into the open Pacific, away from shipping lanes, away from everything. José knew they were in serious trouble, but at that moment, he still believed rescue would come. Someone would notice they hadn't returned. Someone would search for them. Days passed. No one came.
The first decision José made saved his life. He stayed with the boat. As terrible as their situation was, the skiff gave them shelter, flotation, and a platform to collect rainwater. Without it, they would have drowned in the first week. He quickly realized they had to ration everything. The ice they'd brought for fish became drinking water as it melted. When that ran out, they relied entirely on rain. José used every container he could find, empty bait buckets, plastic bottles, even the motor cover to catch fresh water when storms came through. Some days it rained, other days nothing. He learned to drink just enough to survive, no more. Food was the next problem. They had brought some provisions, but those were gone within the first week. After that, José had to hunt. He caught fish with his bare hands, grabbing them as they swam near the boat or hiding in the shade underneath. He learned which ones were safe to eat raw and which made him sick. When fish were scarce, he caught seabirds. He would wait completely still until a bird landed on the edge of the boat, then grab it. He ate everything, the meat, the organs, even the blood when he was desperate. Turtle became his most reliable source of food. When he managed to catch one, he would butcher it carefully, eating the meat and drinking the blood. Turtle blood became his substitute for water during long, dry periods. It tasted awful and made him nauseous, but it kept him hydrated. The mental battle was just as hard as the physical one. José started talking to himself out loud, just to hear a human voice. He kept a routine: wake up, check the horizon, look for birds or debris, try to catch food, rest, and repeat. The routine gave him purpose. It kept his mind from breaking. He made a promise to himself every single morning: survive one more day. He also talked to God. Raised Catholic, José prayed constantly. Whether it was faith or just the need to feel less alone, those conversations became part of his survival system.
But José also made mistakes, and some of them haunted him for the rest of his life. The first mistake wasn't entirely his. His boat was not equipped for an emergency this severe. There was no emergency position indicating radio beacon, no satellite phone, and no life raft. These were expensive items, and like many small-time fishermen, José had been operating on a tight budget. But out there in the Pacific, that lack of preparation became the difference between a quick rescue and 14 months of hell. He also admitted later that he and other fishermen sometimes ignored weather warnings or took risks to maximize their catch. On November 17, there may have been signs he overlooked in his rush to get offshore. The worst mistake, though, involved Ezekiel. The younger man struggled from the beginning. He wasn't physically or mentally prepared for what they were facing. He got sick from drinking seawater. He refused to eat raw fish or birds. He grew weaker and weaker. Around 4 months into the drift, Ezekiel gave up. He stopped eating entirely. He told José he couldn't go on. Within days, he died in the boat. José kept his body for several days, unable to accept what had happened. He talked to Ezekiel, even though he knew his friend was gone. Finally, he said a prayer and slipped the body into the ocean. That moment broke something inside him. He was completely alone now, thousands of miles from anywhere, with no hope of rescue in sight. He blamed himself for bringing someone so inexperienced. He blamed himself for not saving him. That guilt stayed with him long after he was rescued. There wasn't one dramatic turning point for José. It was slower than that. Somewhere around the 6-month mark, he stopped expecting rescue. He stopped scanning the horizon for ships with hope in his heart. He had seen ships in the distance several times, even tried waving and shouting, but they never saw him. His small boat was invisible out there. Instead of hope, he developed something else: acceptance, an adaptation. He accepted that he might die on that boat, but he also accepted that he wasn't dead yet, and as long as he was alive, he would keep doing the things that kept him alive. His body changed. His hair grew down to his shoulders. His skin became covered in sores and salt burns. He lost more than half his body weight. His muscles deteriorated, but his survival systems became more efficient. He knew exactly how much rainwater he needed. He knew the best times to catch fish. He knew how to rest without wasting energy. Mentally, he detached. He stopped thinking about his old life. He stopped imagining rescue. He lived entirely in the present moment. Survive today, deal with tomorrow when it comes. Then, on January 29th, 2014, after 14 months at sea, he saw something on the horizon that didn't look like a cloud or a wave. It looked solid. It looked like land. At first, José didn't believe it. He had hallucinated before, but as the current carried him closer, the shape became clearer. It was an island, a small atoll with palm trees and a beach. He had reached the Marshall Islands, a tiny chain of coral islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, nearly 7,000 miles from where he had started. His boat washed up on the shore of Ebon Atoll on January 30, 2014. He tried to stand but collapsed. His legs barely worked after more than a year of sitting or lying down. He crawled onto the beach. Two local residents, Emmy Liebachmetto and Russell Lykidrick, found him. They were terrified at first. This wild-looking man with long matted hair and a beard, rail-thin, babbling in Spanish, stumbling out of a battered boat. They brought him water and food. They called for help. Authorities arrived and took José to the local health clinic. Doctors examined him and were shocked he was alive. He was severely malnourished, dehydrated, anemic, and suffering from liver and kidney damage. But he was alive. His vital signs were stable. Against all odds, his body had endured. When José told his story, many people didn't believe him at first. 438 days adrift? Impossible. But investigators checked the details. The boat matched records from Mexico. Ocean current models confirmed that a vessel drifting from the coast of Mexico in November 2012 could reach the Marshall Islands by early 2014. His physical condition matched his story. Experts in survival and oceanography verified that, while extraordinary, his account was possible. José was eventually flown back to El Salvador, where his family had long since held a funeral for him. They thought he was dead. Seeing him alive was like seeing a ghost. The reunion was emotional, overwhelming, and complicated. José wasn't the same man who had left.
So what can we learn from José Salvador Alvarenga's survival? First, preparation matters. Emergency beacons, waterproof radios, life rafts. These things exist for a reason. José survived without them, but he also suffered unimaginable hardship because he didn't have them. If you're going into the wilderness, onto the water, or into any remote environment, proper safety equipment isn't optional. It's the difference between life and death. Second, the will to survive is built through action, not just mindset. José didn't survive because he stayed positive. He survived because every single day he did specific things. He collected water, he caught food, he maintained his boat, he kept moving. Survival is a series of small decisions repeated over and over. Giving up is easy, continuing is hard, but continuing works. Third, the human body can endure far more than we think. José went months on minimal food and water. He withstood infections, exposure, and extreme weight loss. Medical experts say most people would have died in his situation, but he didn't. Why? Because he never stopped trying. Your body follows what your mind refuses to quit. Fourth, routine and purpose prevent mental collapse. When everything is chaos, structure saves you. José's daily routine, his conversations with himself, his prayers, these weren't luxuries, they were survival tools. They kept his mind functional when isolation could have destroyed it. And finally, the ocean is unforgiving. Currents can carry you thousands of miles from safety. Once you're out of shipping lanes, rescue becomes a matter of luck. Always file a float plan. Always tell someone where you're going and when you'll be back. José's disappearance wasn't noticed quickly enough because people assumed he'd gone somewhere else or would return eventually. José Salvador Alvarenga didn't set out to break a record. He just wanted to catch some fish and go home. Instead, he spent 438 days alone on the Pacific Ocean, pushed to the absolute edge of human endurance. His survival wasn't a miracle. It was the result of decisions, discipline, and a refusal to quit, even when quitting made sense. And that might be the most important lesson of all. Survival isn't about never feeling hopeless. It's about continuing anyway. José's story proves that survival isn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about refusing to quit, even when every reason to give up is staring you in the face. If you found this story incredible, hit the like button and subscribe for more real survival stories that will change how you see human limits. Drop a comment below. Could you survive 438 days at sea? Thanks for watching. And remember, preparation isn't paranoia, it's survival.